Hello there and welcome to another edition of the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Good to have you with us today on a Friday. I always feel like there's an extra spring in my step on a Friday. Maybe you're getting off work, probably a good feeling, going to enjoy a weekend. Maybe watch some of the PGA this afternoon. PGA Championship, of course, ongoing right now. We'll get to that here in a little bit. A lot to talk about today. A lot of big stories in the sports world. I was going to start off with the Dwight Howard situation, finally the end to the Dwight Howard saga, but then just a couple hours ago we get the word that the best defensive player in college football last year, the Chuck Bednarik Award winner, which goes, of course, every year to the nation's top defensive player, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, kicked off of LSU's team. That is a big blow for a team who number one in the country in the coaches poll, which is the only poll that matters, and it still does matter. Remember, that playoff does not take effect until 2014. So the coaches poll will matter towards determining a national champion this year. Of course, it's part of the BCS formula. LSU number one in the coaches poll this year, and if this had happened a couple of weeks ago, if this had happened before that poll was released, there is no doubt about it, LSU would not be number one in that poll. As a matter of fact, we spoke about when the polls released it. That was one of the closest. It's one of the closest top three in history, almost historically close. LSU, even though they're number one in the poll, they're actually third in first place votes. Number 2, Alabama, and number 3, USC, both receiving more first place votes than the Tigers. Yet LSU is the number one team in the country. Most amazing thing about that to me, about those three teams, Alabama. I mean, I understand LSU, they're returning nearly everybody. A lot of people think there's going to be an upgrade to the quarterback situation with the transfer of Mettenberger. LSU suffered from mediocre at best quarterback play for years now, throughout the Jordan Jefferson, Jarrett Lee era. By the way, I saw Jarrett Lee was actually on an NFL roster somewhere, which stunned me. Sometimes in the preseason, you'll see some fourth-string guys who say, well, this guy plays professional football? You're telling me Jarrett Lee has made at least one NFL paycheck? Very surprising. But anyway, I understand why LSU was number one in the country this year. And USC, returning, of course, Matt Barkley, Robert Woods, maybe the best wide receiver in the country. A lot of returning starters out there. USC, a lot of people think their defense is going to be better than they have been these last couple of years. That's what's really been holding USC back in the Lane Kiffin era, has been their defense. But Alabama, loses more than half of their starting lineup. They have to replace 12 starters. Yet they get more first-place votes than anybody. Number 2 in the country. I mean, if that is not a just bow down to the altar of Nick Saban vote, I don't know what is. And I'm not saying that that's the incorrect thing to do or the incorrect position to take in the role of college football right now. I mean, even though they're having to replace so many key players, so many key guys on defense, with guys who have never been tested, I wouldn't bet against Saban and that machine he's got going to get at Alabama right now. All those guys who are coming in, filling in for these guys who are going to the NFL now, all these guys were 5-star recruits in high school themselves. Of course, ask Florida Gator fans how that works out. Seems everybody goes on these days about how Florida's roster lacks talent, and when you look at where their 2009, 2010 recruiting classes ranked top in the country, top 2, 3 in the country. So a lot of unknowns for the Alabama football team, but getting a little off the point here, Tyrann Mathieu, and this isn't only a loss for LSU. To me, it's a slight loss for college football. I mean, this guy was a personality. In college athletics, you don't have stars and recognizable names for as long as you have them, of course, in professional athletics, because the careers are so short. College players will play, 2, 3, sometimes 4 years. I mean, a lot of guys don't even play their freshman year, so I know in college football you have to at least be 3 years removed from graduating in high school, but some guys you only see in action for 2 years. So when you get a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist last year, like I said, won the Bednarik Award as the nation's top defensive player, he was a legitimate star, the biggest name in college football on the defensive side of the ball for sure. And, an exciting guy to watch play. I mean, I was looking, they list him at cornerback, but he really does it all. I mean, he plays some free safety, some nickel corner last year. Obviously does play some cornerback, a little bit undersized to play safety full-time, but when you look at his stat line last year, he scored 4 touchdowns, 2 punt returns, and 2 fumble returns for a touchdown, 6 forced fumbles. Keep in mind, they only played 12 regular season games. I guess LSU played 14 games. 6 forced fumbles in 14 games. That's incredible. 2 interceptions, 4 fumble recoveries. The guy was all over the place, did everything. And I know for LSU it's just next man up because they've been recruiting. I mean, they've got player upon player in the defensive backfield, at least if you believe their recruiting rankings coming out of high school, because we haven't seen any of these guys who are going to replace Matthew in action. Bunch of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen are the guys being talked about as the guys who are going to have to step up and fill the void. LSU will still have an excellent defense, no question about it, but they will feel the loss of Tyrann Mathieu, especially, it's not like they're an offensive juggernaut. LSU's not the type of team, generally, they haven't been in the past, that just blows teams away. Seems like every year they have to win a couple of games ugly, even when they've been great. Their national championship year, their last one anyway, they lost a couple of those games. So anyway, Tyrann Mathieu kicked off of the LSU football team, and we know it's for drugs. I mean, it's obvious. No need to say it or make a big deal out of it or whatever, but violation of team and school rules, quote unquote. Remember, he was suspended last year a game for failing a drug test for synthetic marijuana. Not sure synthetic marijuana. I guess if they can test for it in a drug test, it must mess you up, right? I mean, if it's synthetic, you'd think he might have been kicking himself after he failed it. I'm guessing if he smoked synthetic marijuana, he probably liked smoking real marijuana. So when he failed the drug test anyway, he probably like, oh man, could have, if I'd have known that, shoot. But anyway, synthetic marijuana apparently can be tested for. Apparently people do use it. And Tyrann Mathieu was suspended last year 1 game for using it. And as we talked about last week with the Greg Reed release from the Florida State football team, same situation, also a drug-related situation. Anytime one of these guys is released, and it's a violation of team or school rules, but they refuse to say any more, and today LSU Athletic Director Joe Oliva was asked directly if this was drug-related, if it was related to the synthetic marijuana, and he said, quote, not going to confirm or deny. See, these schools are legally bound. They're not allowed to say that a player failed a drug test. One report you'll never hear is so-and-so cornerback for Florida State fails test for marijuana. You'll never read that report in the paper. So they're not allowed to publish that. Protection of privacy or whatever. I don't know. Somebody who knows more about the law than me could probably quote the exact law, but schools cannot divulge that information. So when you see these guys suspended for a game or two for violation of team rules, this is nearly always, a drug-related thing. It just is. And I guarantee you, Tyrann Mathieu, and just like the case of Greg Reed with Florida State, for these guys who are star players to actually be kicked off the team, because all of these football programs have policies like you fail 1, warning, you fail 2, warning. I mean, you can find their policies online, and some of them are stricter than others. Nearly all of them, you have to fail at least 3 tests to miss any time. So when you start getting guys who are suspended for games, these are guys who failed multiple tests, and when these guys are star players and actually getting kicked off the team, this has been just repeated failed tests. Repeated. So Tyrann Mathieu apparently, didn't want to be on the LSU football team that bad, or at least couldn't control himself 24 hours a day. He's a young kid, he's only a sophomore last year. So he's going to go off now to some obscure D3 place or JUCO. He'll play this year. He's going to have to go to a place like that because that's the only way he can be eligible to play immediately. He'd have to sit out a year otherwise. And he will, in a couple of years, be making millions of dollars in the NFL. I mean, this definitely hurt. I mean, he took money out of his own pocket with this thing right here. He's a top half of the first-round guy. Not regarded as good a prospect, I guess, as Morris Claiborne, his teammate last year, who was drafted in the top 10 this year by Dallas Cowboys. Even though, I heard the show right before this, the guy was saying, well, he might not be Morris Claiborne as a defender. Yeah, he's not Morris Claiborne. He was much better last year. I mean, fact of the matter is, Morris Claiborne, I know he steadily rose up draft boards throughout the off-season. And he was regarded as one of the top corners in the country last year in college football. But Tyrann Mathieu was given the award as the best defensive player in college football. I mean, he went to New York. He was one of the Heisman Trophy finalists. That's very rare for a defensive player. So this guy, and he'll still be drafted in the first round or two. Definitely won't be drafted as high as he was before. This definitely cost him some money. But in the grand scheme of things, if he can keep his head screwed on straight, and that's a big if. I mean, this guy's reputation, a little bit of a troublemaker, a little bit of a loose cannon, the honey badger. He's one of those, you got the feeling that Les Miles kind of liked that about him. He'd sort of rub him on the head, that type of thing. Les Miles today in a statement said, quote, "We extended ourselves personally and professionally to him." End quote. Rules are rules. End quote. So, Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, will not be playing football in the Southeastern Conference this year. As we mentioned earlier, LSU number 1 in the coaches poll, the only poll that actually counts, and it still does count. They will not be number 1 in the AP poll because it was so close in the coaches poll. If you had taken Tyrann Mathieu off the team, they wouldn't be number 1 in the coaches poll right now. The AP poll does not get released until August the 18th. I expect USC to be named number 1 in the AP poll. Could be Alabama. I was a little surprised Alabama was ranked ahead of USC in the coaches poll, but we shall see a whole lot of respect, earned respect, for what Alabama's doing right now. Now, the other major story, I guess a bigger story in the grand scheme of things in the sports world, except, I don't know if it's a bigger story in my world. Hey, I love NBA basketball, but when you're talking about the best defensive player in the SEC getting kicked off of his team less than a month before the start of the season, that's sort of headline news in my world. But the Dwight Howard saga, soap opera, finally over. Finally over. He is going to the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Lakers are now scary good on paper. And right as we were leaving yesterday, right at the end of the show, we mentioned this. We said, there's a deal that's being rumored, and right around then is when it was being rumored. Right when the show was on the air, people are saying that Dwight Howard may be going to the Lakers, and the Orlando Magic may be getting Pau Gasol and Aaron Aflalo in return. That's how we closed our show yesterday. And as I said yesterday, and I stand by, if I were a Magic fan, I'd feel pretty good about that. Because Howard, you weren't going to get anything for him. He's made clear that he's not going to re-sign with the team after his contract expires at the end of next season. So they had to get something for him. And Pau Gasol, a guy who's still in his prime, one of the best 4 or 5 power forwards in the league, legitimate, excellent, all-star level big man, still has a few years left on his deal, so it's not like he'd come to Orlando and leave. And Aflalo is a good young guard, not a great offensive player, but a good all-around player, sort of a poor man's Andre Iguodala. Just entering the prime of his career. He's been playing out in Denver, played collegiately. Gator fans might remember him. Aflalo was on those UCLA teams that the Gators beat in the Final Four. I believe it was consecutive years. It was consecutive years when the Gators won those back-to-back national championships that they had to face UCLA in the Final Four. Aflalo was a member of those teams, at least the team that they played in the actual finals, the UCLA team. I remember Aflalo being on that team. So that was what I was thinking. That's what ESPN was reporting yesterday evening. So Magic fans who woke up this morning, they had to be a little disappointed because ESPN was sort of right. They just missed one minor detail that should be very major for fans of the Orlando Magic. They were right about the part that Dwight Howard goes to the Los Angeles Lakers, but Pau Gasol is staying in L.A. The Magic are not getting Pau Gasol. Aaron Aflalo, a young guard who is nowhere near an all-star level 2 guard in the NBA, nowhere near it. He's a good, solid young player, a starter. That's the best you can say about him. But he is now the centerpiece of what Orlando received. I mean, looking at this trade from an Orlando Magic fan's perspective, I just do not understand it. It seems worse than the packages that were mentioned involving the Brooklyn Nets, because at least then you'd have gotten Brook Lopez, who's a better player than Aaron Aflalo. Brook Lopez, a good young center. Chris Humphries, a power forward who's shown He can be a double-double guy. Marshawn Brooks, a good guy. I mean, there were some players being talked about in that whole Brooklyn Nets Magic deal that almost happened. And a lot of people were saying that was not a good deal for Orlando. What did Orlando get? I'll break down the deal for you here. It was a 4-team deal involving the Lakers, the Orlando Magic, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers received Dwight Howard. The Orlando Magic received Aaron Aflalo, Al Harrington, a past his prime scorer, can still get you double digits, but comes off the bench now, was in Denver last year, has been just about all over the NBA. I don't even know how many teams Al Harrington's been on. If you had to make me guess, I'd say 7. He's been on a lot of teams. So they got Aflalo, Al Harrington, and then what? Nikola Vucevic, Josh McRoberts, a bottom-of-the-bench guy, Christian Ayanga, another bottom-of-the-bench guy. They did get a rookie from St. John's, Mo Harkless, who was picked in the middle of the first round this year, and 3 future first-rounders. But the thing about these first-rounders is it's one each from these 3 teams. And they're way spaced out. I mean, the one they get from the Lakers isn't until 2017. So these 3 teams, Denver, L.A., and Philadelphia hasn't been a good team. They've been bad. That pick might be valuable. But L.A. is going to be good for a long time. The first-round pick you're going to get from them, that's going to be like the 25th pick or later. And Denver, because they're part in this trade, I haven't finished about the trade. Because Philadelphia in this trade, they received Andrew Bynum from the Lakers and Jason Richardson from the Magic. And the Denver Nuggets received Andre Iguodala, all-star guard, currently playing over in London as part of Team USA. Nuggets received Andre Iguodala. So the Denver Nuggets have been a playoff team. George Karl's done a very nice job out there. I believe it's 2015. So in a couple of seasons when Orlando gets their draft pick, you can assume that they're going to get better with the addition of Iguodala. So 2 of these 3 draft picks that Orlando got are probably not going to be that valuable. And you know what? Out of all 4 of these teams, I like what Philadelphia did the best. And so that might mean all 3 of the first-round picks Orlando gets are mid to late in the first round. Because the Philadelphia 76ers, they got rid of Andre Iguodala. For those of you who don't follow the NBA closely, for don't know the Sixers situation, they have a couple of guys, and Evan Turner, and, oh boy, his name just slipped my mind, Georgia Tech. 6'10", 3'4" from Georgia Tech, Pete. They picked him in the first round. I can't believe this slipped my mind. This is unbelievable. I wouldn't even write this down because that would slip my mind. But anyway, they have 3 guys who play the same position. They drafted him the year before last in the first round out of Georgia Tech. I don't... 6'9", 6'10" guy, frame of a power forward, but plays more like a small forward. Not Evan Turner. The other guy, the guy who's going to get more time now. Pete's trying to help me out by looking it up on the phone. I very rarely space on something like that. But anyway, there's room. I mean, they have the players to replace Andre Iguodala. Andre Iguodala played that 3 position. Evan Turner, a promising second-year player out of Ohio State, you know, he wasn't able to get as much time as he would like. They'll be able to give him some more run now. And God almighty, we still don't have it, Pete. This is going to bug me. I mean, I'm telling you. I'll stop the show till I know this, because that would bug me till I get it. I can't believe I spaced on the other name. Anyway, Philadelphia 76ers have 2 young first-round picks, Evan Turner and the man unknown. So they won't miss Andre Iguodala. They add Andrew Bynum and Jason Richardson. And that's another thing. You know, the NBA, everybody talks about bad contracts, and Jason Richardson was one of these guys. Orlando Magic fans know Jason Richardson very well in these last few years. Still, you know, not one of the best 2 guards in the league, but I'll tell you what, he's better offensively than Aaron Aflalo, the guy they now have. Richardson probably not as good defensively as Aflalo anymore, but Jason Richardson was a guy who's considered a bad contract, considered a liability because Orlando owed him too much money. And so, really, people, sort of NBA executives, they applaud you when you get rid of a contract like that. So a lot of people think that's part of the good part of this deal for Orlando. Oh, they got to unload Jason Richardson. Well, aside from Dwight Howard, who was their best player? Ryan Anderson? Well, he's now gone. I don't know, Turkoglu? Jason Richardson? I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, I guess you got rid of a bad contract, but you also lost one of your better players. Maybe your best offensive player, especially now that Ryan Anderson's gone. Anderson, of course, really had a good year last year shooting threes. Anyway, Philadelphia 76ers getting better, I believe. Orlando Magic, Aaron Aflalo, Al Harrington past his prime, and garbage. And the LA Lakers, for them to hang on to Gasol. I mean, if you're Orlando, if you get Gasol and Aflalo for Dwight Howard, you say, okay. For them to hang on to Gasol, their starting five is now Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard at center, Pau Gasol at forward, and Ron Artest, or the artist formerly known as Ron Artest, at small forward. That is impressive. Now, they also announced today a couple of signings, picked up Chris Duhon, veteran guard who Orlando Magic fans know well, played collegiately at Duke, considered a defense-type guy. You can already see Duhon as sort of an end-of-the-bench reserve for this team, which is no doubt going to be a title contender. I mean, Dwight Howard, he's the best center in the league, one of the best 5 players overall in the league, period. If Steve Nash, I was thinking about this, because Dwight Howard known for being a great screener. He's just so big, being a great screener, being a great finisher around the rim. And, of course, nobody runs a pick and roll better than Steve Nash. Remember when he was teamed with Amari Stoudemire out there, you just remember all the highlight reel dunks Stoudemire would have. But I was thinking about it. I mean, just the combination of Steve Nash to Howard. If you brought Steve Nash to Orlando's team, if Howard stayed in Orlando and you had Orlando's current roster or their roster last year and added Steve Nash, you'd be onto something. At least offensively, Orlando was a playoff team last year. To put them out in L.A. with Kobe, and I know Kobe might be a little past his prime, but still one of the best players in the league. Pau Gasol, I mean, I don't know. To me, on paper, they look like the favorites to me. I've heard people say today, well, Oklahoma City's still the favorite out west. This hasn't pushed them past Oklahoma City. Hey, it's August and nobody knows anything. We're all looking at it on paper right now, but I don't know about that. On paper, this looks like they have pushed themselves past Oklahoma City to me. And I remember the Lakers several years ago when they signed Gary Payton and Karl Malone, and they still had Shaq. They made that one sort of, that's what I sort of equate this to. That team, a disappointing finish, did not bring home the title, but this team, it remains to be seen. Now, the NBA's dream over the last few years has been Kobe versus LeBron, and it looks like they might get it. Maybe not. Oklahoma City might have something to say about that. We shall see. But I'll tell you what, the Los Angeles Lakers look pretty strong now. Thaddeus Young is that guy's name. Oh, my God, it just popped into my head. Thaddeus Young, how did I miss that? Anyway, so Andre Iguodala, as I said, they have Philadelphia 76ers already sort of had too many guys at one position. They had a backup. Thaddeus Young and Evan Turner picked in consecutive first rounds, 2 and 3 drafts ago. Young guys who have shown a big upside. Andre Iguodala has probably already given you his best. So for the Sixers to only lose Iguodala and gain Andrew Bynum and Jason Richardson, their weakness last year was center. They started Spencer Hawes, and they lacked consistency from the 2-guard position. Their leading scorer last year, Philadelphia's, was Lou Williams, who came off the bench. Williams is, of course, gone now to the Atlanta Hawks. Sixers signed shoot first and shoot all the time swingman Nick Young to replace Williams. So, yeah, I know plenty about the Philadelphia 76ers. Of course, I follow the NBA closely. For some reason, the name of Thaddeus Young escaped me for a good 5 minutes. But now I can go to break with a sense of sanity. All right. We are going to go to a break now. 794-9001, the number, if you'd like to get on the other side. I'm John Arnette, and this is the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnette. Good to have you with us on this Friday afternoon. 794-9001, the number if you'd like to join the program, 794-9001. Your calls are always welcome. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com. your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Everything on The Social Gambler is entirely free. Content updated daily. Gambling news, gambling industry news, gambling technology news, free sports picks, free sports news, humorous sports videos, and more. The and more does include video podcasts of this program. Can be found on thesocialgambler.com. Again, everything is free, and they're an app for your smartphone. So check them out, thesocialgambler.com. PGA Championship ongoing right now. Ocean course at Kiowa Island, which is known for being extremely difficult. The Ocean course has a reputation that, scores were expected to be really high this week. Some people thought par might have a chance to win. Yesterday, those guys tore it up. Scores really low yesterday, but the course is showing its teeth today. Just a second ago, Tiger Woods was in the lead by himself, but he bogeyed 8. Just a minute ago, he bogeyed 8, so Tiger Woods is now tied with 3 other players. Carl Pedersen, who of course held the overnight lead, young Japanese phenom Ryo Ishikawa, and Vijay Singh. Vijay Singh is posted at 4 under par. So Vijay Singh low in the clubhouse, and the way the course is playing today and the way the scores are looking, these guys are backing up. Vijay Singh might have the lead by himself at the end of the day. Tiger Woods now, this means this is the 3rd major that he has held at least a piece of the lead at some point. And yes, if you heard that door slam, that's just people we have here obnoxiously coming in the studio, knocking over everything, just because they feel like they have seniority. Anyway, Tiger has held a piece of the lead in 3 out of the 4 majors this year now. Obviously wasn't able to close the deal in the first 2. Brace your ears for this door slam now. This is going to be... All right, here we go. All right. Earth shaker. Anyway, we'll see if Tiger fares any better this weekend than he did at the U.S. or British Open. The old Tiger Woods, Tiger is one of the best front runners in the history of any sport, really. He never come from behind. He's never come from behind on the final round to win a major. But I tell you what, when he gets a lead, at least in the old days, nobody could catch him.
Jim, hang on.
We'll keep you up to date, of course, with the results of the PGA as they unfold here. Among the big names to have dropped back a little bit, Rory McIlroy, 2 over for the day. Now 3 under for the tournament. Still only 1 back of the lead. John Daly, after shooting a 4 under par 68 yesterday, to the delight of many of his fans, has dropped a couple today as well. Also 2 over through 8 is Daly, 2 under for the tournament, 2 back of the lead. Daly has steadied the ship a little bit, though. Notice that he was 3 over after 4, so good to see him. Good to see him, steadying it a little bit. We pulling for you, John Daly. John Daly talked about it yesterday. He's a likable guy despite all of his problems and issues. Maybe that's what makes him likable. Anyway, we are going to go to the phones now. We have Jim on the line. Jim, you're on the Social Gambler Radio Hour. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, thanks, John. I was just wondering, do you happen to know what this has done in terms of the Lakers for their odds to win the NBA championship? Have they moved dramatically one way or the other? Do you know?
I haven't checked since this news came out. However, I remember we talked about it on the show recently, a couple of weeks ago, when it was being rumored, Howard to the Lakers. The odds were greatly affected. Lakers, I believe, changed to second favorite. And now, I have, because of the miracles of modern technology. See, most people, Jim, most of these radio shows you call in, these guys are all pecking away in front of a computer anyway, sounding like experts. Pete Melfi's my living proof here that most of this stuff might not come off the top of my head, but I'm usually not pecking through the computer here the whole time. However, when necessary, I can reach to the bullpen and pull up something like the new odds to win the 2013 NBA championship. And the odds have been affected because the Lakers, before this acquisition, there were 4 teams: the Heat, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Chicago Bulls, and the San Antonio Spurs, who were listed as shorter odds than the Lakers. The Lakers were tied with the Dallas Mavericks at 18-1. Well, now the Lakers, only the Miami Heat, stand above the Lakers in terms of favorites. Miami Heat currently at 5-2 out in Vegas to win the NBA championship. That's obviously 2.5 to 1 on your money. The Lakers right behind them at 3 to 1. They are followed by the Oklahoma City Thunder at 11 to 2. So that's a pretty big jump. Lakers at 3 to 1. The Thunder at 11 to 2, which is over 5 to 1 on your money. Bulls follow them at 9 to 1. So yeah, Lakers can still be had at 3 to 1 out there. Second favorite, I guess. Miami Heat still the favorite at 5 to 2. But that's a good question. I'm sure a lot of people were wondering what specifically the Howard acquisition has done to the odds, and that is your answer.
Well, I appreciate that. And I was wondering, the second question is, do you think Tebow will get any time tonight?
Well, yeah, of course, New York Jets are scheduled to play tonight. Full slate of games tonight. Tim Tebow is supposed to get extensive time, upwards of 2 quarters. They're playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Preseason football, as we saw last night, and those 6 games, 2 of them were 7 to 6. I mean, it was some ugly football, and there's no doubt that certainly while Tebow's going to be in the game, he'll be surrounded by backups on both sides of the ball, on offense and defense. So and it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen if that game is a thing of beauty or this game here in Jacksonville. Of course, the Jaguars open their preseason tonight here at Everbank Field against the New York Giants, and I'm going to be in attendance at that game. And I'm not preparing myself for a thing of beauty. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, quite frankly.
Well, at least it's football, so we're getting close.
You got that right, Jim. At least football's back.
Thanks for taking my call.
100%. Thank you for calling.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
That was Jim. Tim Tebow fan. Apparently, yes, Tim Tebow expected to get a good amount of playing time tonight for the New York Jets as they play the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of people in this area are real interested in the New York Jets and how that storyline develops. We're not alone in this area. People are obviously interested in that across the country. Seems like you cannot turn on ESPN or the NFL Network without seeing some Jets update. I believe everything's going to go really well, just so long as they're winning. If they are not winning, especially early, Mark Sanchez will be the Kyle Orton of this season. There's no dispute that Kyle Orton throws a prettier ball than Tim Tebow, and I'm quite certain that in Denver Broncos training camp practices last year, as were the reports, Kyle Orton was able to more accurately throw with shorts and shoulder pads on. He could probably throw a 15-yard out more consistently with more accuracy than Tim Tebow. However, as you know, when you saw the 2 quarterbacks play last year in the actual football games, Tebow was the better football player, due in large part to his running ability, no question about it. Will it turn out that way in New York this year? Mark Sanchez, a more traditional quarterback, throws a prettier ball. Sanchez has struggled at times throughout his NFL career, has been the source of some criticism up there in New York. A lot of the press up there has sort of labeled him as the impediment to the Jets' success. He has played in 2 AFC championship games. A lot of people think the defense were a big reason for that, but Mark Sanchez just entering the prime of his career. So we'll keep track of that situation, obviously, as everybody will. And it does start tonight for them up there in Cincinnati. Going to go back to the phones now. We have Jerry on the line. Jerry, you're on the Social Gambler Radio Hour. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Why are you comparing him to even Kyle Orton? Because Kyle Orton's you're right.
Why am I comparing who to Kyle Orton?
Oh, Tebow.
Uh-huh.
Because the bottom line is, all the quarterbacks, if you think about it, in the NFL are the quarterbacks that you want as far as a regular quarterback. Tebow completely different. He is not your regular quarterback. If they put him in that position as far as that with the Wildcat, I think he's going to be okay. Because he's not. He throws a wobbly pass. He's not accurate. You can't compare him with anything, really. I mean, he's all by himself. Don't you think that?
Well, I think he has a unique skill set, and I do believe that for him to succeed, somebody's going to have to allow him to use his running ability. There's no question about it. His running ability is what separates him from some other quarterbacks. Now, when you say there's no comparison, Michael Vick, when he first came into the league, the Falcons led the league in rushing every year. Vick threw for less than 200 yards a game, and the Falcons advanced to an AFC championship game. So, there has been a precedent set for a team winning with a quarterback who uses running as much as he uses throwing. Certainly last year, the Carolina Panthers with Cam Newton. Now, a lot of people will point to Newton's stats as being a lot better than Tebow's, 60% completion instead of around 50. Keep in mind that Newton's average air yards per pass was about 7, and Tebow's was about 12. The Panthers surrounded Newton with a lot of talent out there. He's got a stable of running backs behind him, D'Angelo Williams, Jonathan Stewart. Got one of the best wide receivers in the league in Steve Smith. And, he broke a NFL quarterback record for rushing touchdowns. Newton rushed for more touchdowns than any quarterback in league history. So I think Newton's also a guy who uses his running ability and also passes and has success. So, I as you may know if you listen to this show, Jerry, I'm on the side of I do believe Tim Tebow can be a successful quarterback in the NFL, a very successful quarterback. However, I don't dispute that for him to be successful, they're going to have to let him run, and his running ability is going to have to be utilized. There's no question about that. Now,
I'll go with that.
The reason I made the Orton comparison is because a situation similar to last year. Tebow last year, all the reports were he was being outplayed in training camp by Kyle Orton. He started the season as a backup. We know the rest. They started off 1-4. He came in. They started winning games with a different offense, mind you, but a very similar deal this year. He's up there. He's the backup to Mark Sanchez. Reports are Sanchez throws a better ball, which he obviously does throw a better ball. But again, Tebow does things that can't be measured when quarterbacks are wearing those red non-contact jerseys in training camp. So
why is Tebow so he doesn't want to be talked about? Personally, he does not. But why does everyone talk about him?
Well, I have my own opinion on that. Obviously, the reason we talk about him in this area is clear. He's from this area. His family lives here. Played high school football here, and he's the most talked about player in the NFL. So, he's a famous guy who's from this area. But I believe the reason nationally it's such a big subject is because, I said it before on the show, you find me another example of a guy who has succeeded at every level, had obviously a great college career, who so many people, before this guy took a snap in the NFL, just about everybody who's everybody in terms of NFL analysts went way out on a limb saying this guy is awful and can't play. And so then last season, when you had all of these guys who make their living on giving their opinions, going so far out on this guy can't play, Tebow, who has a lot of fans, not only Gator fans, but SEC football fans, Tebow has a lot of fans throughout the country for one reason or another. Their fans are looking at this saying, well, wait a second, this guy's been nothing but a success. He seems to be the best or one of the best football players on the field when he's in the SEC, which is sort of the NFL light. So many of those guys go on to play the NFL. And why are you saying this guy can't play? And then last season, week after week, when the Denver Broncos would win, it became a phenomenon, sort of watching the Merrill Hodges of the world squirm in their seat on Monday morning and try to say, I don't really know how it happened again. So I think the story sort of fed itself because you had so many people going out saying this kid is terrible, and then you have some of his fans saying, wait a second, he's not. And then when he sort of starts to prove that he's not terrible, at least not nearly as bad as they made him out to be, there you have the story. And hey, Jerry, it's starting up again this season. Boomer Esiason a week ago going public saying he should be cut.
Oh, yeah, I heard him.
When's the last time you've heard an analyst go public and say any backup quarterback should be cut? Who cares about the backup quarterback? It would sound so unusual to pick up the backup quarterback of some random team and say, this guy should be cut. So Boomer Esiason saying that, that negativity that sort of feeds the Tebow news cycle, it's just...
I got you.
Going to continue this year.
Hi, man.
But anyway, Jerry, hey, I appreciate the call.
Hi, buddy.
Jerry got me going on a subject which near and dear to my heart. We talked plenty about it last year in the football season. We'll talk plenty more about it this year during the football season. Do have to go to a break right now, though. 794-9001, the number if you'd like to join the program. I'm John Arnette, and this is the Social Gambler Radio Hour. Welcome back to the Social Gambler Radio Hour. I'm John Arnette. Thanks for joining us here on this Friday afternoon. Maybe you're on your way home from work. Wherever you are, good to have you with us. Of course, if you're not listening to us on ESPN 1420 St. Augustine, we can be heard via the Listen Live link on 1420sports.com or thesocialgambler.com. We are brought to you by thesocialgambler.com, your leader in free sports picks, news, and reviews. Did I mention free? Everything on the Social Gambler entirely free. A great place to hang out if you're a sports fan, if you enjoy gambling on sports, watching sports, either way. Try not to say the same exact thing every time. Pete gives me a little bit of a hard time. I do say pretty much the same thing every time. So when I try to deviate, I say things like watching on sports. That's why I try to keep it to what I know, you know. At least what I usually say makes sense when you break it down. Anyway, Jacksonville Jaguars. The Mike Mularkey era opens tonight. Jags a 2.5-point favorite over the New York Giants. I do like the Jags in the game tonight, I got to say. I know the offense looked bad throughout training camp. I know the best player, Maurice Jones-Drew, still not there. And by the way, I read a disturbing report today. Adam Schefter of ESPN saying that his sources are hearing that the Maurice Jones-Drew holdout will last into September. However, I just believe the Jags are going to want to win this game more than the Giants are. Giants, defending Super Bowl champions. The starters on both sides are only going to play for a series or two, but I don't know. Just a guess, but a guess that Mike Mularkey would like to start off his tenure with a win, even though it is a preseason game. Get some positivity going for a team that badly needs a dose of positivity. Little of interest in tonight's preseason game that I noticed. It's a little bit of a surprise, just sort of flying under the radar, but Evan Britton will start the game at left guard. Of course, when Evan Britton and Eugene Monroe were drafted in the first round a couple of years ago, Gene Smith's first draft, they were expected to be bookend left and right tackles for the foreseeable future. Jags has sustained a couple of injuries to the left guard position. Will Rackley, Jason Spitz have gone down. So Evan Britton now slated to start at left guard. Who knows if that'll be a permanent move? Jags are not saying. Evan Britton has struggled at right tackle throughout his career, but his replacement, the untested Cameron Bradfield. Cameron Bradfield, an undrafted rookie last year. This is his second season. He will start at right tackle tonight. I tell you what, for a quarterback who has been skittish in the pocket, Mike Mularkey has said this preseason he's trying to coach Blaine Gabbert to hold on to the ball longer, not to throw it into coverage, take a sack if necessary. Whew. An inexperienced right tackle, undrafted, free agent last year, could be the recipe for disaster. We hope not. I'll be in the stands tonight, so I'll be able to see it personally if he has to be scraped off the field. Of course, preseason games, usually there's an unspoken agreement between coaches not to blitz in preseason. Purpose of that is not only not to injure each other, but not to expose too much of your playbook before you have to. So again, Jags and New York Giants tonight. Now, something that I saw broke earlier today that is a little, I don't know if disappointing is the word, but as a Jags fan, you know, sure would have been nice. We've talked about the NFL's new blackout rule. The NFL changed the rule this year, allowing teams to have the option of taking their number of non-premium seats sold from 100% down to 85% to avoid a blackout, basically making it a lot easier to avoid a blackout. When the NFL announced this rule change about a month and a half ago, those of us here in Northeast Florida thought, many media members, myself included, thought the days of blackouts here in Jacksonville were over because of course, that rule change was specifically designed for teams like Jacksonville, teams whose stadiums might be too big for the market, bad weather teams. You know, the Jags, it's hot, really hot, as you know, September and October, so a lot of fans would rather watch it on television, and teams who struggle to sell tickets. I mean, the Jags seemed like the prototype for the team that the NFL was trying to help. Well, the Jags declined to take advantage of that. A very unfriendly move for the fans, keeping that number at 100%. And it makes the Jags look bad now because The Dolphins announced today they will join Tampa Bay, so that means the other two teams in the state of Florida are taking full advantage, moving their blackout number down to 85%. Miami and Tampa have also had blackout trouble in the past. And the Dolphins releasing a statement today saying they felt like it was the best thing to do for business reasons, growing the fan base. And who needs to grow the fan base more than Jacksonville? I mean, part of the problem the Jags have is some local football fans are not Jaguar fans. They're fans of other NFL teams. I mean, the Jags need young kids, young football fans, to grow up watching the Jags, rooting for the Jags, and, you know, they're bad and sort of irrelevant on the national landscape. So if you're not at least watching them every Sunday, then how are they supposed to be fans of the team? So I was a little bummed a couple of weeks ago when it was announced that the Jags were not going to take advantage of the rule change. They were going to keep that number at 100%, preferring to have that carrot out there to hold over fans' heads to force them to buy tickets. And it definitely, you can bet that Shad Khan, that Mark Lamping, that Jags front office, they were bummed when they heard today that Miami has decided to take advantage of that rule. Because the fact that Miami and Tampa, two of the other teams who play outdoors in real hot weather places, the fact that they have taken advantage of the rule and Jacksonville hasn't, no two ways about it, it makes them look more fan-friendly. You know, no two ways about it. Anyway, of course, the Olympics ongoing. We couldn't get you out of here without your daily dose of Olympic news. USA playing Argentina in men's basketball right now for the right to advance to the gold medal game. Americans currently ahead 47-40 at half. Spain beat Russia earlier today in an excellent game. Spain was down 11 at the half. Only scored 20 points in the first half, did Spain, but came roaring back in the second half. Behind the Gasol brothers, they combined for 27 and 16. Jose Calderon, 12 points in the second half. They are waiting for the winner of this USA-Argentina game in the gold medal game. Something surprising about Spain, you know, I've been watching a lot of this Olympic men's basketball. It's been very interesting. Serge Ibaka, the best shot blocker in the NBA, starting power forward for the Western Conference champion Oklahoma City Thunder. He is now at the bottom of the bench for Spain. This game today, he played 7 minutes, fewest of anybody on the team. Serge Ibaka is literally their last man, the 12th man. So, you know, I know not very gifted offensively, but boy, what he brings, shot blocking, rebounding. Hard to believe. We'll see if he gets any time. We'll see if they think he's more useful against the USA tomorrow, if indeed the USA beats Argentina. I thought that Spain's big front court was going to be the advantage they tried to use, but without Ibaka, I'm not sure what their plan of attack is going to be. Also, the Olympics, you probably saw it, Usain Bolt becoming the first man in history to win both the 200 and the 100 in back-to-back Olympics. I think that pretty much makes him the fastest man ever. U.S. also winning gold in women's soccer, and they'll have an opportunity to win gold in women's basketball after the U.S. women beat Australia in the semis. There you go, your daily Olympic update. Sorry, it was a little shorter than usual. Has to be that way sometimes. Again, PGA Championship ongoing now. Carl Pedersen, the overnight leader, has retaken the lead. Tiger Woods in a three-way tie for second with Vijay Singh and little-known Just Luton. Well, we're out of time for today, folks. Thank you for joining us. Do hope you have a great weekend. I'll enjoy that Jaguar game tonight. Of course, we can be heard Sundays at 10 on 1010. If you don't catch us then, we'll be back next Monday at 4 for more of the Social Gambler Radio Hour.